And you? Your career is boring and pointless. Your housekeeping skills are second-rate. Your taste is appalling, and everyone dreads your parties.
This is I Don't Even Own a Television, 12 Rules for Life, an Antidote to Chaos, blah, blah, blah.
1, 2, 3. There are books that are good, there are books that are bad. There's some books so fucking awful you wish you never had read them at all. 'Cause a novel can ruin your life. Hey buddy, I don't even own a television.
Welcome to I Don't Even Own a Television. It's a podcast about very bad books. I'm JW 50 Shades Friedman.
I'm Chris. I don't care for rules. Collision.
Yeah, and today we're talking about, well, you've already seen the title, so you know what to expect. The one, the only, Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, an Antidote to Chaos. Should be mentioned right up front. I know we say frequently we don't like to read books that we know are just going to bum us out.
Yep.
About once a year, I forget why, and then we do it anyway. And holy fuck.
We had to resort to extraordinary countermeasures to get through this. And full disclosure, we had a full week longer than normal because my schedule was turbo fucked this week. And even with the extra week, I know you put on, how did you get through this?
Several different ways, which we'll discuss later, but I will say healthy doses of alcohol was a big part of it. Mm-hmm. Skimming quickly, which, I'll admit it. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing in this book because this is a man who loves to say the same thing over and over again. Whew. And then some counteractive media, but we'll talk about that later.
Fair enough. Anyway, it was the biggest slog in recent memory. This is easily in my top 3 things I disliked the experience of reading the most for this podcast.
Yeah, I wanted to say, right up front, I wanted to apologize to all the other books I've called the worst thing I've ever read for this show because, ladies and gentlemen,
we at the very least we have a new contender in town.
Hailing from the red corner of the dark intellectual web, the new champion, Jordan B. Peterson. Jesus fucking Christ. This was like a journey to the center of the mind of the worst person you will ever meet, and I hated it so much.
Tell him how you really feel, brother.
I will, because here's the problem, right? I know... Here's the thing. If you've ever thought I was funny on this podcast, which is probably a hard sell to begin with, I wouldn't expect a lot of it this time around because this book made me absolutely furious for many reasons.
I rolled up to his house and he was just like shadow boxing in the front yard.
This book made me buy a heavy bag.
I got inside the house and he was just like stabbing pins into this large doll that had Jordan Peterson written on it in Sharpie.
And it was wearing a brown jacket with elbow patches for some reason.
Yeah, it looked like a sleazy undertaker from 1903 trying to defraud a widow.
Yeah, I was going to say he definitely, looks like the type of person who could be tying someone to a railroad track at any given point in time. But we're not here to talk about the way the man looks.
And that's not really even how he looks. That's how the man dresses.
Yeah.
Like, if we were talking about how he looks, that would be rude. And we're not rude people.
Except for when we say he looks like Frank Zappa, but smugger.
And stop and think about the levels of smug that would require. More smug than Frank Zappa.
Yeah, who admittedly I love, but that was a smug looking man. So here's the thing. This is a guy with a reputation, and I know a lot of you at home are going to be familiar with this as kind of being one of these leading lights of what a lot of people like to call, what do they call it? The dark, I forgot the name.
I call sorry, I was about to just be like, I call them stupid assholes.
Well, there you go.
That's me.
The something Renaissance. I don't know. It's all these fucking know-it-alls.
The Dark Enlightenment is one of the things
that's what I was thinking of.
That you used to hear. Currently, it's sort of like some intellectualized version of the alt-right. And some of that, with respect to Jordan Peterson, I would guess is fair. Some of it is not. He is simply a small c conservative thinker. And we'll get to thinker later.
Thinker.
Actually, scratch that. He is a small c conservative person. He is a small c conservative writer.
Yeah.
He really explicitly and implicitly dislikes change intensely.
Yeah, and I think he's been adopted as kind of the patron saint of a lot of very horrible people.
A lot of his ideas lead to very unpleasant places. He's not out here saying anything on the surface more controversial than, say, Sinbad saying women be different than men.
True.
It's that the way he says it then allows him to reach conclusions like, therefore, women and men should be treated differently legally, which is where I start to have a problem.
Yeah, and I think, as a result, because we live in the horrible era that we do now, a lot of people have kind of latched onto him as this talisman of a way of thinking that I personally find incredibly abhorrent. So it's going to be very hard for me to get through this without getting ranty. I apologize in advance, everybody who doesn't like it when I get ranty, but I feel like I would be doing myself and you a disservice if I tried to calm my emotions when talking about something that made me this fucking angry.
Yeah, it's also very, it's very hard to not get angry the fourth time you're reading his gloss on Cain and Abel in a self-help book. Because it's just very poorly written. It's incredibly repetitive. It's muddled beyond belief.
Yeah.
That's why I say he's not a thinker. He's a writer. Like, he doesn't have arguments anywhere in this book. What he has is beliefs and some grievances and some readings that he mentions he hopes in support of those beliefs and grievances.
Yeah, and let's take a step back because you mentioned You mentioned self-help, and that's definitely what this is. And that actually surprised me quite a bit because not knowing much about this book before I came to it, I was under the impression that this was straight up polemic from start to finish.
I mean, it is that.
I mean, it is, but what it also is, ostensibly, is a path to a better life.
Right.
Which is not what I was expecting at all. And I would say that most of the advice is spurious at best. But it did surprise me how banal a lot of this shit is.
Oh, absolutely. And we need to call out our own privilege.
Yeah.
We are a couple of white guys.
That's true.
Who are basically incredibly successful.
I've had several romantic relationships in my life as well as careers. And so already I feel like I'm coming from a different place than the people that Jordan Peterson is writing for, which are those who consider themselves aggrieved despite their position of privilege.
But I also just want to say that we have reached our lofty statuses.
That's true.
Through a combination of things. One is some inherent personal privilege, some structural privileges that we inherited as well. And two is from following our own paths through life that have absolutely nothing to do with the 12 tips we're about to go through. So we can say with absolute confidence as, and I have to repeat this, incredibly successful men.
Yes. So successful.
So successful.
Very successful. I've had the best success. It's just terrific and wonderful.
It's really true, and you hear about it more and more.
Yeah.
We know whereof we speak when we describe this advice as ranging from A to B, where A represents, probably harmless. Somewhere between A and B is, dude, what the fuck are you even talking about? And B is, that's actually extremely bad idea.
Yeah. So I guess before we get any further, we should do what we normally would call plot in 60 seconds, but we're going to use the same song anyway.
Nobody knows if you're finished or not. You've got 60 seconds to give them the plot. Plot in 60 seconds.
What we would call plot in 60 seconds, and what Jordan Peterson would probably call the Protocols of the Elders of Zion.
Yeah, so
that's the kind of plot his readers are interested in, not him.
Oh, of course
I know
not.
Jordan Peterson has no opinion about the Jews, positive or negative.
Oh, no, I mean, anytime he wants to illustrate how not racist he is, he tells you a story about a Holocaust survivor, which is a very completely awesome trick that is not transparent whatsoever. But anyway, so normally we try to sum up the book in 60 seconds, but that probably would be too easy in the case of this book, and it goes against the spirit of the text, because one thing Mr. Peterson, or Jordan, as I like to call him, is concise.
Is this the oldest man named Jordan?
It's entirely possible, although, I don't know, he's probably about the same age as one of the new kids, right?
Oh, no, I think he's in his 60s.
Oh, yeah, you're right. He talks about being a teenager in the 70s, so yeah, late 50s. Either way, yeah. If not the oldest sounding.
Oh, God. Yeah, a lot of this book is getting yelled at by your dad as we are about to elucidate and elaborate in a not just formally different, but the first time we've ever done anything like this.
Yeah, so let me turn my phone off so it doesn't make that little ding again.
That was really pleasant.
It was. Mr. Peterson would be very disappointed. Jordan, I should say, would be very disappointed in my lack of preparation.
There is no chance he bothers to put his phone on mute when he goes out in public.
That's true.
No fucking chance.
Okay, so what we're going to do instead is, since this book is structured as 12 chapters, each is a rule for living.
Yep.
And then a coda at the end, quote unquote. We're going to take this chapter by chapter. I believe you have the names prepared.
Yep.
And I'm going to give a brief synopsis of what that chapter contains.
Right. All right. Are you prepared?
Yes.
All right. Rule 1. Stand up straight with your shoulders back.
Lobsters stand up straight.
And that's why lobsters don't live in crappy neighborhoods.
And they get sex because of it.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Rule 2. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping.
Okay, so this is love yourself at the expense of everyone else around you. And then kind of veers wildly off into some horrible victim-blaming type bullshit. Yep.
Rule 3. Make friends with people who want the best for you.
Don't do drugs. Don't help people. But make sure that you lecture them about it.
And if anybody's around you seems fun, get them the fuck out of your life.
True.
Because they're probably just a moocher, a leech. Rule 4. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today.
Don't measure your worth against others or self-criticize unless you're reading a 600-plus page book by a man who wants to tell you exactly how you should act and behave.
It's not clear to me how compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today, plays in with the sentence, who cares if you're president of Canada or if you're prime minister of Canada when someone else is president of the United States? I'm not quite sure how.
I think that's intended to be sardonic, but who knows? It's really hard to tell because, in case you couldn't figure it out, the overwhelming tone of this book is, once again, incredibly smug. But yeah, moving on.
Rule 5. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them.
Kids are brats, but they shouldn't be, and it's okay to hit them as long as it's not too hard, whether or not they are your child.
Good one to grow on.
Yeah.
Rule 6. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world.
Okay, so this starts off as being about taking care of yourself in very simple ways like bathing and house cleaning, and then somehow takes a hard left turn into vengeance is actually rad and becomes like an Earth Crisis song.
Rule 7. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient.
I wrote down here, delaying gratification, a.k.a. the edging of all things.
Oh, no.
And it pretty much is what it sounds like. Literally, don't be short-sighted. Focus on the long term.
Yeah.
Hope you've enjoyed my presentation about our Q4 corporate goals.
Rule 8. Tell the truth. Or at least don't lie.
Literally, don't lie about stuff. And this somehow takes, like about 100 pages to get across?
Did you know that both the Holodomor and the Holocaust are because of lies?
Yes, it's true. Did you also know that this is the chapter where our author outs himself as a pathological liar without realizing it?
There's put a pin in the outing himself as blank, dear listener.
Yeah.
We'll be coming back to that one.
Yeah.
Rule 9. Assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't.
Don't be a know-it-all. Also, I am the best psychologist who knows everything.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but Rule 9 is contraindicated by the rest of this fucking book.
Yeah, which is literally just screaming in your ear about how you need to listen to him.
And you don't know shit, Jack. Rule 10. Be precise in your speech.
This is say what you mean and don't lie, not to be confused with Rule 8, which also says basically the same thing with different anecdotes.
and some of the same anecdotes. Also, be precise in your speech is, again, contradicted by the entire rest of the fucking book.
Yeah, this is a man who refers to Homer Simpson as the infamous father of the Simpson clan. Very precise, my friend. Cuts like a knife.
This is also a man who refers to, let me find it, refers to the Lion King as a strange, surreal story. My brother.
Yeah.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, no. It's a cartoon by Disney.
A very simple cartoon by Disney about some very primal, one might say, universal-ish themes.
Yeah.
I do have a theory about why somebody might think The Lion King is strange and surreal when he's watching it.
Because they took a lot of acid?
Ding, 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 ding.
Awesome.
The only good thing about my experience of reading this book is towards the end when it finally clicked and I was like, oh, he's a weed dad.
Yeah, he's
Like-
just an angry weed dad.
Yeah, he's just a worse weed dad than we've interacted with before. Perhaps he's the kind of weed dad who, as Denzel famously taught us, likes it wet.
Oh, Jesus. All right.
Yes, I'm saying Jordan Peterson. I am literally making the factual claim that I believe Jordan Peterson does angel dust. Sue me.
I'm just mad that you drew a line between Denzel and Jordan Peterson. Like, I feel like atonement needs to be made for that.
Rule 11. Do not bother children when they are skateboarding.
Okay, so this starts out as skateboarding is not a crime, in which our author is very impressed by dudes doing rail slides with no ollies first, which is lame. But then suddenly, this becomes the worst of the leftists are wrong manifesto section of this book.
Yeah.
And then proceeds into boys rule, girls drool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rule 12. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street.
So this is the Stop and Spell the Roses chapter that gets a lot into the tragedy in his personal life, which I'm not going to make fun of because unlike Jordan Peterson, I have a soul and a conscience. But basically the idea here is enjoy the simple things in life and the small moments. And also dogs and cats are equally cool, which is maybe the one thing on this entire book that I agree with.
Yeah, like I stand with you on that, Jordan Peterson. Your dog sounds pretty awesome. So does your cat.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's it, folks.
Well, don't forget about the coda that comes at the end, which is...
Motherfuckers act like they forgot about codas.
What will you write, Clsn, with your pen of light, your newfound pen of light?
Oh, my God. Okay, so let me actually just pull this up because this was an illuminating...
Oh, shut up.
In
my notes, I have this as wherein our author becomes a modern-day Moses, which, once again... flies in the face of several of these rules that he's just told you about how to be a better person, I guess. But yeah, so you found it?
Yeah. So this is the coda. I'm just going to read you the beginning of it. What shall I do with my newfound pen of light? Okay, first off, I am instantly distracted because there's that sea shanty or chanty, I can never remember. I think it's chanty. That I think the Dropkick Murphys covered, which is, what should you do with a drunken sailor? And so if you start off, what shall I do? That starts going through my head. And it mildly undercuts what you go on to say. But anyway.
Yeah, so the next sentence is, put him in the hall until he's sober, right?
Yeah, or shave him. I forget. Shave his ass and make him walk backwards. I forget. In late 2016, I traveled to Northern California to meet a friend and business associate. Sell weed. We spent an evening together thinking and talking. At one point, he took a pen from his jacket and took a few notes. It was LED equipped and beamed light out its tip so that writing in the dark was made easier. Just another gadget, I thought. Later, however, in a more metaphorical frame of mind, I was struck quite deeply by the idea of a pen of light. There was something symbolic about it, something metaphysical. And that's when I realized 700 pages deep, like, oh, you got super high, and all of a sudden that pen of light, which is also a minor plot point in high fucking fidelity.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
And probably available in your finer, they don't put catalogs on
airplanes anymore. I was going to say Sky
anymore.
Mall. You could probably find it at a Sharper Image. I don't think that exists anymore, but there are definitely those as seen on TV stores in the mall. You could pick one up there for sure.
Yeah, and just like... that was the moment at which I was actually able to like wrap my heart around this book a little bit and hate it and hate the experience of reading it a little bit less. Because I was like, there's something kind of endearingly daddish about being enthusiastic while stoned about the world's most useless gadget.
Yeah, but the question is, what shitty Silicon Valley millionaire do you think he was hanging out with? Was it Peter Thiel or Elon Musk? That's...
Yeah, I don't know. I like when he says friend, and so I also like to kind of envision him as more of like a rough and tumble Canadian,
funny.
Canadian kid, like as you know, as befits the stories he tells about himself. So when he says friend and business associate, I genuinely imagine it's a biker and he's selling him some acid.
I think you're giving this guy way too much credit for the things he says at face value, because the words rough and tumble definitely did not cross my mind at any point while reading this pompous buffoon fucking quote John Milton every other page in service of some shitty self-serving philosophy.
Well, you just got to remember, though, he is from Alberta, which is the Texas of Canada.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah, well, there are a lot of pompous dicks from Texas that aren't tough, too.
In my opinion... Yeah, you know what? I'm not going to go there, but yes, I agree with you. This guy is this? Would you rather get stuck in an elevator with Dr. Phil or Jordan?
Oh, Jesus, fuck. That's a Sophie's choice.
Yeah.
I'm going to say probably Dr. Phil, because I would want to punch him slightly less. and as a man approaching 40, I can't just go around punching people willy-nilly free of consequence.
That's true. And Dr. Phil seems like he knows how to like sit down quietly and maybe you talk about barbecue for an hour.
Yeah, like he could probably turn it off. I get the impression Jordan Peterson is in this mode 24/7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the plot. Now I think it's probably time that we just assess this the only way we know how, and that's to dive deep into the dualities underpinning nature, society, and human nature. I just said nature twice.
Oh, don't worry. You're still committing far less literary sins than what we've waded through. So. Rhetorical sins, I guess. But yeah, time for high points, low points, I guess.
Yeah.
High points are high,
And the points are low.
high points.
No points, get ready to go.
All right, so this is the part where we talk about the good parts of the book and the bad parts of the book. One of these is going to be much easier than the other. Spoiler.
Yeah.
I guess if you want, I'll go first. We like to start out with high points as a compliment sandwich here.
Yeah.
It's very hard for me to find points in this book that I actually enjoyed, but I will say that I found some of this very enjoyable in the same way as like watching a video of a man fall down a staircase. And so those kind of are my high points. Definitely for me would be the at least 5 or 6 times that Jordan self-owns by describing telling a joke at a party that made everyone uncomfortably shuffle away in silence, and then relating it like that's a universal thing that happens to everyone.
Actually, the cell phone on that one is even better than that, because it is literally in a chapter devoted to the premise: assume the people you're talking to know something you don't.
Yeah.
And he tells this story about a joke that didn't go over, him retelling the joke, it not going over, and then him saying, I still think I'm right about this.
Yeah.
Like it undercuts the literal premise of the advice he's purporting to give.
This is a man who doesn't just explain the joke that he just made to you. If you don't laugh, he then tells you why you were wrong for not laughing.
And then lectures you about how you should listen to people around you.
Yeah.
Like before that section, there's like a 10-page thing on how important it is to know how to read the room when you're giving a talk.
I was just going to say, you know what the first rule of public speaking is? Read the room. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that is probably the best cell phone anywhere in here.
By the way, we should say that self-own, I think we both managed to make it sound like cell phone. Very different things.
Yeah.
We're just talking about a man saying something about himself that is incredibly embarrassing without appearing to realize how embarrassing it is.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got to go first.
Oh, no, wait. Let me explain that joke again. No, you're wrong.
Oh, Jesus Christ. High point, huh? This I highlighted because it's just funny to me, just on a pure prose level. And it bears, I think, mentioning that Jordan Peterson is an abysmal prose stylist. He's repetitive. He's cliche prone. He manages to have this like combination of cliches and overwritten, portentous shit all the time. Like, things aren't just bad things. They're dragons.
Yeah.
Just kind of muddling through your life isn't living. It's capital B being. Mm-hmm. And then he'll say things like, stand up straight with your shoulders back, which is kind of a cliche.
And it's in a chapter about
ultimately
lobsters,
prosaic. Yeah.
which do neither.
Right.
They don't even have fucking shoulders. Anyway.
And his logic literally is, if you stand up straight with your shoulders back, you might get to move to a better neighborhood because lobster serotonin. Like, that's what he, like I said earlier, this guy doesn't have arguments. I meant it. He doesn't.
I mean, it's worth mentioning, not to interrupt, but it's important. Pete Carroll recently invited this man to give a pep talk to the Seattle Seahawks during the offseason, and I hope they all learned a lot about how to get some good lobster babes.
Yeah.
Some high-status lobster babes.
Yeah. Just the Seattle Seahawks, just like going into caves and ejecting smaller lobsters because they can.
Yeah.
So anyway, just on the prose level, there's very little to like here, but I did really like this 2-word semi-quasi sentence. Emergency, emergence, open parentheses, Y, close parentheses, period. Emergency, emergence, E.
Whoa, man. That's that Mike Myers poem from So I Married an Axe Murderer.
I haven't had the pleasure.
You haven't heard woman, whoa, man, because that's what that was that you just read, basically.
That's a new one on me, and I'm pretty sure that was Rule 13 that got clipped for space, or he just forgot to attach it to the email when he submitted these loose notes toward the book that the publisher inexplicably slipped up and published as though it were actually a finished text or a coherent entity of any kind.
Can you imagine getting an email from this guy? I bet it's like at the least 5,000 words per email.
Yeah, and is about like, don't forget the milk, Karen.
Yeah.
Or whatever. His name's his wife's name is Terry, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I read your name 1,000 times, Terry, and if I got it, I feel a lot of sympathy for you because your life sounds fucking awful.
Yeah, I was going to say, you already suffer through living with this man. We apologize for messing up your name.
Yeah. So, after dishing out such rip-roaring praise as we've just done for 5 minutes, it unfortunately is incumbent upon us now to turn our gaze to the negative sides of these 12 rules, which are an antidote to chaos. Also, just marinate on the phrase antidote to chaos. Like, that's not what an antidote is. Chaos is, anyway, it's just bad.
Yeah, it's bad writing.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth mentioning right now, quite obviously, I think both of us agree that the worst part of this book is its horrendous philosophy. And, rather than focus on that and just repeat ourselves, we're going to talk about auxiliary low points.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, look, we're also not going to, try to debate this guy too much, I think. I mean, debating Jordan Peterson, like I said, he doesn't have arguments. Like, it would be like debating a ventriloquist's dummy. You're not going to win. You're just going to make yourself look like a jackass, and probably somebody with his hand up somebody's ass is just going to be laughing at you the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. And, for what it's worth, there's a lot of stuff in this book that is very hilarious on a prose level, and I would like to focus on that right now.
Hell yeah.
So, one of the things that I really like that he does quite a bit throughout this is to prove a point, he will take, say, a children's fable or a Disney movie or say perhaps a popular joke and then spend 5 to 10 pages explaining it to you in great detail. There is literally a 5-page description of The Little Mermaid in this book. that ostensibly exists to prove some sort of point about masculinity and femininity, but really just comes off as a man explaining The Little Mermaid to you for 5 pages.
Also, I don't want to go too hard on this particular point because he's a depth psychologist. He's deeply influenced by Jung. He's not a huge Freud guy, although he has a lot of respect for Freud. But he makes a point in his retelling of The Little Mermaid to mention 2 special times when a man penetrates an evil woman and doesn't seem to notice either time that there might be some subtext there.
Oh, subtext is foreign to Jordan Peterson. There's no doubt about that. But I love it. He does it with that. He does it with, as we mentioned earlier, what was the other Disney? Lion King.
Yeah.
He tells an old Soviet joke about hell where he manages to stretch out what should be a tight little funny joke into a 3-page description and then totally fucking dicks the landing and screws the punchline up completely. I believe I may read that later.
He talks a lot about men joking together, and you can just imagine the scenarios where everybody's sitting around the break room griping, not wanting to go back to work, and everybody's kind of round robining it. They're talking shit, they're having fun, and then he says something, and you can just see it land with a thud.
Yeah, if he's not just standing in the corner with a notebook going, "This is very interesting.
Yeah,
I love the banter between the working class men in my job."
The other thing is you're right. He will seize on the most anodyne and pointless things.
Ooh, anodyne is a great way to describe it.
Yeah, as though they explain everything, but all of his cultural inputs are Disney movies and The Simpsons.
And Tolkien.
Yeah.
Which, Jesus fucking Christ, dude, please.
I mean, a huge amount of this book is a longer, more boring version of that one little riff in Cryptonomicon where the guy is kind of musing. He's like, I mean, I make stuff and I'm kind of grumpy. I'm a dwarf. There are really, really smart, beautiful people in the world. They're like elves and everybody else is just a man. It takes up a page and a half. It's a pretty good riff. Great job, Neil Stephenson. Thanks. And that, that blown up to 700 some odd pages is this pile of crap. But in terms of how anodyne he is, he would literally see a bumper sticker that reads "honk if you're horny." He could write a chapter about that, about how inviting sexual response and displays of sexual bravado being selected for in parakeets, and how this explains human behavior, and that's why you gotta holler on your girl if you're horny. You know what I mean? It's just shit.
It's absolutely shit. Oh man, I wish I could find the actual highlight here, and I can't. But it's funny that you were talking about birds and sex, because one of the very first chapters says something about the call of the smallest songbird is actually the cry of a mighty warrior.
Yeah, when I read that part, I was like, this is awesome. This is going to be one of those books that purports to be about something, but is actually secretly very metal. And I was getting excited. And that was not at all the experience I was fated to have.
Yeah, because 4 pages later, you're in fucking lobster land, dude. Also,
that joke about songbirds, you know, was made better in a 1-panel Far Side cartoon. Where the songbirds are being territorial and the dad is explaining how silly it is to be territorial, but they're in the suburbs and every lawn is carefully fenced off.
Yeah. Actually, I mean, a lot of this book and kind of what I just mentioned, those long descriptions, are if you imagine somebody reading a comic strip to you.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It's really horrible. Have you ever wanted someone to describe an episode of The Simpsons to you in text form and then draw ridiculous over-the-top conclusions about it? Then this is the book for you.
I've never done. I have to go.
Okay. This is the Tao of Pooh for angry young men, basically.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. I've been rambling too long, and it's your turn.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a subtle low point, and by that I mean I'm extremely smart. We were talking a little bit about cell phones and self-contradictions. Here is one of my absolute favorites. And for this to make full sense, you have to know that this is 2/3 of the way through the entire fucking book, right? We're 400 pages deep.
Why is this so long?
I don't know. And one of the things that's deeply important to him is binary oppositions.
Oh, yeah.
particularly male versus female, but also
Order, chaos.
order, chaos, light, dark. He's deeply, deeply concerned with these, and that resonates with me, both sort of because of my Marxist training, but also because of my linguistics training. Like, I literally have a plus and minus tattooed on my elbows. Like, binary opposition is something that, like, I think a lot about. It's how a lot of my understanding of the world is organized. Same for Jordan Peterson. So far, so good. So when I stumble on a sentence like this, it's particularly hard. It would be lovely if the opposite of a criminal was a saint, but it's not the case. The opposite of a criminal is an Oedipal mother, which is its own type of criminal. Now,
That is
Mr. Peterson, that's not how opposite works. It's not even close. And I'm not even going to touch the Oedipal mother thing. Anyway, that was a long way to go to get to the diner and find out it's closed. But yeah, for a guy who thinks a lot about precise speech, clear writing, and binary oppositions, to say the opposite of A isn't B, it's A again, but a different kind, is wildly confounding to me.
I mean, it's also wildly confounding to me that this book that's filled with that kind of absolutely faulty logic is embraced by the same people that Google logical fallacies on the internet to try to win arguments.
Right.
But yeah, okay.
So that it's time again for another low point.
Okay, so mine is that for a book with no less than 2 chapters about being honest, there is stuff in this book that there is no fucking way it's true. And some of them are, just completely willful misinterpretations of history, one of which I'll describe in a second, and quite frequently anecdotal evidence that seems completely impossible to be real. And if it was real, this man has no professional ethics whatsoever, because the one that really jumped out at me is when he's describing a patient of his who is a quote-unquote directionless woman, and he says he tries to help her get a job, and she brings in her CV, which is, I'm just going to read here because I want you to get this in all of its glory, and if anybody at home believes this is real, I don't even know what to tell you.
Right.
I asked her if she had a CV. She said yes. I asked her to bring it to me. She brought it to our next session. It was 50 pages long. It was in a file folder box divided into sections with manila tag separators, the ones with the little colorful index markers on the side. The sections included topics like my dreams and books I have read. She had written down dozens of her nighttime dreams in the My Dreams section and provided brief summaries and reviews of her reading material. This is what she proposed to send to prospective employers, or perhaps she already had.
Whoa.
That never happened.
There's also a long story about how when he used to take his 3-year-old out to restaurants, he was always perfectly behaved, and people would stop him in the restaurant and compliment him on how pleasant it was to have him and his family and his beautiful children in the restaurant.
And then the whole movie theater started clapping.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, okay, I don't believe that was true, because anybody who is disordered enough to do something like that is probably not the type of person you're going to offer to help find a job. And B, even if it were true, writing this in your book is a huge violation of your professional ethics, dude. You're a psychologist.
I mean, he says a couple of times in the back matter, like, "Oh, I've changed the details," which is,
you've changed the details. You've fucking punched shit up to make it more effective, and that bothers me. The other, just real quick one I wanted to get into is in one of his leftists are wrong sections. He talks a lot about how communism was only appealing to intellectuals and had no appeal to workers whatsoever. And it's like, dude, you have never read a history book, have you? Like, that shit just really, because that's an intentional lie.
I mean, what he read is the Gulag Archipelago.
Yeah, which is one perspective.
Yeah, and basically acts as though that not only annihilates the Soviet Union as a viable moral entity, which I think is a fine conclusion. Like, I don't think the Soviet Union was a moral state. I think it was bad.
Yeah.
I get that this is somewhat controversial in certain segments of Twitter now. As always, feel free to not at me. But he also seems to believe that somehow obviates all of Marx, who is clear that he is not read in any way.
And he paints this picture of just the concept of like collective labor and socialism as being, the sole provenance of like pipe smoking intellectuals, when in fact, like the Bolshevik Revolution, and I mean, there are tons of examples of populist uprisings in history in the name of this fucking philosophy. Like, dude, like, don't cherry pick that much and expect people to buy it.
Well, like I said, he's not a historian. He's not a thinker.
Well, then he shouldn't be writing about that shit.
He has an axe. He has an axe to grind.
Yeah, sorry.
And fundamentally, his biggest axe is, I take to be a kind of oversimplified, vulgar interpretation of individualism. He says explicitly, if we each take care of ourselves, the collectivity will do fine. I think that that's probably false, but whatever. It's his basic assumption.
Yeah.
And his other basic assumption is that all life or all society, all interaction is fundamentally transactional.
Yeah.
And that's where it starts to get extremely frustrating to me, because he's so close to what I would regard as a major breakthrough, because he's constantly holding up reciprocity as kind of the highest good for people interacting. And I'm like, you're so close to discovering mutuality, and it would be like really nice for everybody, including the people who buy your bullshit, if you did. Like,
yeah.
He's got this thing about mothers where he's got this hilarious... the people who hold society together, dumbfounded gratitude is the only response. You know what another response is, Jordan? You could pick up the rope and help us do the fucking work.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Instead of standing back and like, wow, they're working really hard.
Yeah. Like, I'm so grateful somebody out there is like taking one for the team. Well, maybe they wouldn't have to if the team was working better.
See, you're being very generous here, because I would say that kind of his primary position of operating is, somebody once told me that my politics were wrong and it hurt my feelings, so now I hate all of them.
I mean, the bulk of his, non-argumentation does consist of, all the guys I know are pretty nice to their wives, therefore I don't see how patriarchy could be a thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean...
Like, that's basically a verbatim quote. Like,
literally.
He says, how can there be patriarchy when this famous guy in India spent 30 years trying to distribute pads and tampons to women? Like... This is not a guy guilty of a great deal of systemic thinking.
No, that's a very good way to describe it. Yeah, this is a dude who operates purely on an anecdotal level, and then wants to be very prescriptivist about it to you, the reader.
And a lot of it is just like, there's a ton of footnotes. There's constant references to kind of the great books curriculum that a lot of us might have encountered at one time or another.
Like, say, if we went to school for psychology and then stopped reading books as soon as we left college, perhaps. And
just hopped on YouTube for the remainder of our YouTube and kids movies for the remainder of our cultural consumption. But yeah, a huge amount of this reads like, that section of Dan Brown's bookcase that's devoted to the sacred feminine?
Yeah.
Like, imagine that was first run through a wood chipper, second, like reassembled by a really enthusiastic but kind of distractible squirrel, and then third was being read to you by somebody like flipping it off and rolling his eyes the whole time.
Yep.
Like, a lot of the subtext of this book seems to be the sacred feminine is real but bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think I need to get to some kind of secondary low point. I'm going to go with an actual low point, not a theme. There is a long section devoted to explaining something he saw. As you mentioned, sometimes this might be a bumper sticker. Sometimes this might be an episode of The Simpsons. Sometimes this might be The Lion King or The Little Mermaid. In this instance, it was a comic strip selling the Charles Atlas course.
Oh, God, I love this part. I mean, I love it in inverted commas, but yeah.
Yeah. At the end, so if you haven't seen it, it goes like this. Scrawny twerp and bombshell girlfriend go to the beach. Muscle-bound galoot literally kicks sand in the face of scrawny twerp. Bombshell girl goes off on arm of muscle dude. Skinny twerp comes home, kicks chair, decides he's got to become a real man, orders Charles Atlas course, does push-ups, gets bulky, goes back to the beach, finds burly guy, punches him in the nose, puts bombshell on his arm, they leave.
The insult that made a man out of Mel or something like that. I
Mac.
believe. Mac, that's it, yeah.
At the end of this, he says, everybody wins. That's his gloss on this. And first off, how do you know Mac's girlfriend wins?
Yeah.
She's just sort of been traded as a piece of property for the second time in like 6 panels.
She's a fucking trinket. Yeah, that's horrible.
Why doesn't everybody include the bully, who presumably had kind of something go wrong in his life, such that he's out kicking the sand in
he
the
doesn't,
face of twerps?
He doesn't learn a lesson. He just gets punched.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anyway, like everybody wins as a gloss on that was extremely perverse to me, because it's fairly clear that you're supposed to identify as the reader with Mac. You don't care. You want Mac wins. You don't care about everybody.
Well, I believe this was in the section that I referred to as vengeance is actually rad. Because
it is if it's his, but if that's retribution for, say, 400 years of slavery, that would in fact be very bad. And what he would and in fact does say explicitly about that is, you have to be very careful changing things, because changing things could make people suffer. He seems not to understand, number one, people are suffering right now.
Despite saying the phrase "life is suffering" many times throughout this book.
Number two, he also doesn't seem to understand that things are changing anyway. So we might as well try to direct that change with some, say, humility and the intent to make life better for as many people as possible.
Yeah, but fundamentally this book is selfish as fuck, and it just tries to couch it in this language that makes it sound altruistic. But I mean, it's Ayn Rand all over again.
Yeah.
And it's horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're supposed to get back to high points, but I forgot one of my favorite lies in this book, and I just did want to go back to the low point I just mentioned.
Okay.
My favorite part is when he claims that he can smell depression.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and so can all social workers.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a good one.
What does he describe it as? Like that, he attributes it to the social workers, and they call it something like the smell of the unemployable.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
Well, congrats on your Spidey sense, Peter. But yeah, that was very funny to me. Okay, high points. Oh yeah, so this is a very small high point. Once again, kind of a self-own. But I never thought that in a book published within the past, say, 2 or 3 years, I would read a grown man complaining about Elmo. And I feel like that is a perfect illustration of this dude's like misdirected, impotent rage.
Doesn't he say something explicitly like, I never trusted Elmo?
Yeah, I don't know if he just went to Times Square at the wrong time or what happened, but it's horrible. It's just such a like... Suddenly you're dealing with like an edgy teen in the middle of this book. I don't know. It just reminded me of like, I forget what it was we read where someone was talking about Barney the purple fucking dinosaur and all this kind of shit.
I was just thinking about that. Yeah, it's the kind of thing where like there's probably like a 4-month window where kind of everybody's saying it. It's just common currency. And then it ends up on Leno. And then we can all retire it. But the guy who's still doing it in 2018 is the kind of guy where you're like, yeah, sorry, I need to go talk to Dave. I haven't caught up with him in a while. Great party, though, Jordan. Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, and he actively resents both his friend and his friend's child.
Right.
Because Elmo is allowed in their household.
Yeah, I actually looked it up. I always hated that creepy, whiny puppet. He was a disgrace to Jim Henson's legacy. Like, that... you know what? I will give you exactly this about that, Jordan. That's a strong take on Elmo.
It is. And I mean, by that same token, Jordan, you are a disgrace to just about everyone who's laid pen to paper before you.
Ouch.
Anyway, that was a high point.
I'm going to do one more low point before I get to my high point. Sorry. Because I do just want to call out, most of this book is harmless if infuriating. Some of it is actually dangerous.
Yeah, and it's almost all towards the end. It sneaks up on you.
There's one that's a little bit early, and I just really want to call this out as just complete nonsense, because it verges on some stuff that's really been in the news a lot lately.
Okay, so we're back. This is a supplementary low point.
This is a supplementary low
not
point.
Not a high point.
Yeah, no,
don't
not
get it
at all.
Twisted, folks at home, please.
And I need to make this extremely clear to anybody who might be listening. If you get turned down for a date, that is not actually nature. committing a referendum on your fitness. Okay, here's the scenario. Hey, want to get a coffee sometime? No, thanks. This is not a confrontation with howling chaos.
Yeah.
Okay?
No.
This is just something that happens. There's a lot of reasons it might happen, some good, and I'll be honest, some bad and unfair. And I'm sorry about that. But what it isn't is a signal from the evolutionary gods that you are worthless, nor a signal that you are special and should go shoot a bunch of people or ram a van into a bunch of people.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying really hard not to make a joke about this particular thing because I think that right now the tenor of the times is such that this isn't something we should be joking about.
Yeah.
But it is worth mentioning. Yeah, there are several points in this book where kind of, romantic rejection is treated as this kind of like biological situation that's like a nature of, the way the world has evolved and, a combination of evolutionary and social forces working against men who aren't attractive or successful. And that is not the truth. If being unattractive and unsuccessful made it impossible for you to get a date, my 20s would have sucked horribly.
And I just want to say, like, if you're not experiencing a great deal of success in your life, I am very sorry, but it is not because there are pernicious forces punishing your stereotypically masculine traits. It's probably because you're rude and don't have any skills that anybody cares about.
I was going to say, it's probably because you embody the personality traits of the type of person that reads this type of book and subscribes to its philosophy.
Yeah. And again, as an incredibly successful man, let me tell you, if you get turned down for a job or you get turned down for a date, that's a sign from the universe that you'll get him next time, champ. Chin up. Yeah. Learn a lesson and do better next time.
And if you've been let down, might not be the last time. I'm sorry, it'll hurt much less tomorrow. We're all tired of fucking up, and that's not just being sorry. It means brush the dirt off. Get up and try again.
This is Gorilla Biscuits, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And you're in a bad place when your entire philosophy can be refuted by a Revelation Records straight edge hardcore band. Anyway, sorry. Your high point.
Oh, yeah. All right. This goes back. This is just another cell phone, but this was probably the second hardest I laughed in the entire book. The hardest I'm reserving for my dramatic reading,
okay,
he said foreshadowingly. But the second hardest I read in this entire book is the thing that made me write little up arrow. The cell phones are incredible underlined. So every chapter ends with a restatement of the name of the chapter, the rule that the chapter lays out. And then we get the following juxtaposition at the very end of this chapter. Narrow and gaze attentively and move forward forthrightly. Be precise in your speech. Be precise in your speech after the least comprehensible imperative I've ever read.
That ends with a goddamn adverb.
That's a master stroke. I bow to Jordan Peterson for that one. Narrow and gaze attentively. What the fuck does that mean? Narrow what? Narrow your eyes?
That's what I imagine.
Narrow your focus?
Yeah.
Be narrow?
Who knows?
Suck in your gut? Pull up your pants?
Yeah, turn sideways.
That's another thing about this. This purports, this says several times, if you're reading this, you're probably kind of a privileged person. You're probably male.
Bingo!
You probably think that there's something wrong. And so it does kind of purport to be that guide for this, supposed group of youngish men who are feeling like they don't fit in the world very well. And that's why some of this advice is supposed to be so rock solid and grounded, clean your room, put your shoulders back, hold your head up high, don't lie, look people in the eye. But I'm just going to tell you, if you're going to do that, you need to go all the way. You need to be shower at least 300 times per year. You need to, I've heard on Twitter that there's a lot of younger men who have some problems washing the private parts in a way that other people would prefer.
Yeah.
So just like get in there, tell them how to soap up the undercarriage.
Yeah,
You
maybe
know what I mean?
maybe even trim a little bit down there.
It
makes it look bigger.
I'm just gonna say, if that's the book that you're trying to write that fucking book. Like, tell them, just say flat out, every Sunday, go ahead and clean your bathroom and clip your nails. They probably need it. You know, like let's just write that book instead. And you know what you don't need in that? You don't need to talk about they're like lurks a dragon in the toilet bowl. No, you just need to like sprinkle some Ajax in there, let it sit for 60 seconds, and then like grab the scrubber.
Beneath thy fingernails lurks a realm of chaos.
Honk if you're horny.
Yeah, seriously. We should go to break, but I realized we skipped something that I really, really wanted to talk about at the beginning of the show, and so let's do it before break.
Okay.
What,
Yes.
What? I mean, maybe you should actually find the passage. So what we're going to talk about here is kind of what motivated Jordan to write this book, and I think it's really important to note.
So I told you, Jay, that I'm going to tell you what my first hardest laugh was in this book. I just read you my second favorite. Go ahead and ask me what my third favorite or my third biggest laugh while reading this was.
What's your third biggest laugh while reading this book?
In 2012, I started contributing to a website called Quora.
And that is literally the impetus, not the impotence, behind the writing of this book, which led me to immediately, because he gets a bunch of
He gets
highly
upvoted
rated.
on Quora a lot.
Yeah. Quora users give him incredibly high ratings for his answers to questions like, what is the meaning of life?
And then he got a little too big for his britches.
Yeah, and so in response to that, I went to Quora, which is one of my favorite websites for comedy purposes, and printed out one of my favorite questions and an answer that has been upvoted over 1,000 times. The question is, atheists, your 5-year-old daughter is on her deathbed and asks, will I go to heaven when I die? How do you reply? And the number one answer, the one that's received over 1,000, it's 1.9K upvotes, is this. Let me take this out of your hypothetical nonsense and make it real. During the 1990s, I was a professional clown. I did birthday parties, wedding receptions, school shows, store promotions, holiday parties, company picnics, you name it. Violet P. Lavender was there. And then it goes on to talk about the magic of children. But I wanted to point out this is the type of stuff that gets highly upvoted on Quora.
I have spent easily 15 years trying to think of like the worst way to appeal to authority, like the least convincing appeal to authority you could start a sentence off with. That I think is it.
Well,
Like,
you know, and here's the kind of the big twist ending, right? Jordan Peterson, also a professional clown.
rodeo clown, maybe. He's got that vibe.
That was supposed to be a stinger. Let's take a break.
Oh, sorry.
I look in the mirror, I think, what did I do? Sure, I fucked up, but I got back up. That loser shit's out the window. And if you've been let down, might not be the last time. Cheer up, it will learn much less tomorrow. We're all tired of fucking up, and that's not just being sorry. It means brush the dirt off. Get up and try again. When you're
All right, welcome back, listeners. You have waded into the forest of uncertainty, armed only with your wit, to listen to our wisdom as we attempt to elucidate to you the modern condition and the trials and tribulations it entails to survive within. This is I Don't Even Own a Television. We're talking about Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Living,
I'm
an
sorry, what?
antidote to chaos.
I'm sorry, what happened there? I nodded off. You must have been boring me.
It was, welcome to my psychology class. Here's your assigned reading. It's all Ayn Rand and Nietzsche. And no, but seriously.
I'm your host, Fonzie the psychotherapist, and my premise is, how could the world be bad? It produced me, baby.
Exactly. Also, skateboarding is not a crime. Which is literally a thing that happens.
Oh yeah, that's a big chapter. But if we're just going to talk about literally things that happens, how about when he goes ahead and throws Hitler and Stalin's mothers under the bus and blames them for the 20th century?
Yeah, that was definitely the problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, deep breaths, Jay. Deep breaths. All right, so welcome. back. Still breathing. Sorry.
Still, just meditate. Like center yourself. Remember that all of Western civilization has been pointed like an arrow toward producing you an incredibly successful man.
In with kindness, out with compassion. In with kindness, out with compassion. Okay. Welcome to the most centered segment in podcasting history. Here is dramatic reading.
This is the podcast. This is the podcast equivalent of one of those like really cool Instagram pictures of like a beautifully lit balcony with lunch on it.
Yes, because we need this right now. And this is dramatic readings.
Dramatic readings. We're gonna make it sound recorded. Dramatic readings. Yeah, I got some words for you.
Okay, so dramatic readings, we take pieces from the book we read and we attempt to read them to you in a dramatic fashion, which is going to be hard since most of this book is like having a very smug dad mumble in your ear. Clsn, would you like to start us off?
I would love to.
Okay.
Nelson Muntz of The Simpsons is...
Sorry, you need to start over. I apologize.
Didn't get that far.
Just need the dude describe Simpsons episodes to you. Anyway. Okay, sorry. Back to centering. Oh, that was like more gold dust than I wanted it to be. Anyway, please
More
continue.
gold dust than I wanted it to be. I'm a little afraid of getting the Golden Globes in a second here. That's right. I made a wrestling reference. You know what that means. Jay, give us a hockey reference.
The Predators' jerseys are really ugly.
Yep, they're out of the playoffs now. Womp womp.
All right.
Nelson Muntz of The Simpsons is so necessary to the small social group that surrounds Homer's anti-hero son Bart. Without Nelson, king of the bullies, the school would soon be overrun by resentful, touchy Millhouses, narcissistic, intellectual Martin Princes, soft, chocolate-gorging German children, and infantile Ralph Wiggums. Muntz is a corrective, a tough, self-sufficient kid who uses his own capacity for contempt to decide what line of immature and pathetic behavior simply cannot be crossed. Part of the genius of The Simpsons is its writer's refusal to simply write Nelson off as an irredeemable bully. Abandoned by his worthless father, neglected, thankfully, by his thoughtless slut of a mother.
Whoa, dude. Jesus Christ, Jordan.
Nelson does pretty well, everything considered. He's even of romantic interest to the thoroughly progressive Lisa, much to her dismay and confusion, for much the same reasons that 50 Shades of Grey became a worldwide phenomenon. Does Jordan Peterson sexually identify with Nelson Muntz?
I believe he does, and I only have one way to respond to that. I do a really bad Nelson, sorry. But
Yeah, I don't know. Going, hey, that really hurts.
Yeah.
It's the only moment from Nelson that really resonates with me. While we're talking about The Simpsons, I want to talk a little bit about something that I believe, well, let's just say it. One of his hobbies, this is like in the section of the book that's ripped off from Twin Peaks about like giving yourself a little present every day, whether it's a piece of pie or a really nice cup of
damn
coffee.
fine cup of coffee, yeah.
Yeah. What he likes to do to treat himself is watch an episode of The Simpsons at 1.5 speed.
You fucking suck, dude.
That is not just a distasteful act. Like, that is actually a perversion. But even aside from that, like, comedy...
Well, no, wait. Read the next sentence when he explains why.
All the laughs 2/3 the time.
Exactly.
Okay. Here's the thing. Comedy is a rhythmic art form, right? It's simply not the same at different speeds. Like, I'll give you actual proof of that. One thing that comedy writers do is build in spaces for people to laugh. If you're compressing that space, you're laughing over the next joke. Therefore, you're going to laugh less in the long run.
Yeah.
It's like this faux... it's just perverse. And like the desire to do something like that, to me, personally, disqualifies me from having to take seriously anything else you say about anything.
Yeah, and I know there are people who listen to podcasts and audiobooks like that. And look, I ain't trying to hate on you for it, but I think it's weird. And I feel like it makes me feel very frantic, like I'm missing out on a lot of things. And especially in the case of pre-written comedy,
right,
you are ruining your own experience.
Yeah, I will also say that, like, just to, I don't want to just criticize here. I'm going to open myself up for criticism. I personally like to take a fistful of pills and watch Benny Hill shows at half speed.
Oh, I believe they call that chopped and screwed.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I do like to wash it down with a little bit of perp.
Well, to be fair to Jordan Peterson, I read his book at about 1.5 speed, too.
I mean, I do actually think that there is something weird because, like, Jordan Peterson is also weirdly popular in that, like, kind of productivity internet space. And I think, like, if you genuinely enjoy listening to a podcast at 1.5 speed, that's fine. But I wonder sometimes if it's not because what you're really interested in is being able to check off listened to podcast on your to-do list.
Yeah.
And it makes it easier to do that, like, rather than just wanting to enjoy the experience of listening to a podcast. Anyway, we've kind of gotten a little bit away from what I really wanted to bring to your attention, which is the deviant art archives that are no doubt at this point full of Nelson Muntz and Lisa Simpson engaging in 50 Shades based acts.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Yeah.
So now you're thinking about it.
Yeah, and I was trying to remember what the rule number is because, I'm not quite as extremely online as a lot of you listening who are probably 34. That's it. It's rule 34. So, yeah, stop yelling at your speakers now. Okay, anyway. Since we're talking about the internet, though, I think this is a natural segue into my dramatic reading here.
What is the internet for?
Well, a lot of things, but what it is what we're going to get into here. Your laptop is a note in a symphony currently being played by an orchestra of incalculable size. It's a very small part of a much greater whole. Most of its capacity resides beyond its hard shell. It maintains its function only because a vast array of other technologies are currently and harmoniously at play. It is fed, for example, by a power grid, whose function is invisibly dependent on the stability of a myriad of complex physical, biological, economic, and interpersonal systems. The factories that make its parts are still in operation. The operating system that enables its function is based on those parts, and not only that, but others yet to be created. Its video hardware runs the technology expected by the creative people who post their content on the web. Your laptop is in communication with a certain specified ecosystem of other devices and web servers. And finally, this is all made possible by an even less visible element, the social contract of trust, the interconnected and fundamentally honest political and economic systems that make the reliable electrical grid a reality. This interdependency of part on whole, invisible in systems that work, becomes starkly evident in systems that don't. The higher order surrounding systems that enable personal computing hardly exist at all in corrupt third world countries, so the power lines, electrical switches, outlets, and all the other entities so hopefully and concretely indicative of such a grid are absent or compromised, and in fact make little contribution to the practical delivery of electricity to people's homes and factories. This makes perceiving the electronic and other devices that electricity theoretically enables as separate, functional units frustrating at minimum and impossible at worst. This is partly because of technical insufficiency. The systems simply don't work, but it is also in no small part because the lack of trust characteristic of systemically corrupt societies.
Side point, did you really just say that one of the reasons my laptop works is because of stuff that hasn't been invented yet?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a little resentful that he didn't like drop in, some kind of like, and none of this would have been possible without dinosaurs that lived and multiplied and then died and turned into clean burning friendly coal. Coal, the power source you can love,
It's just so fucking pedantic. Like you could have expressed that sentiment in 3 sentences. It still would have been pretty facile and based on somewhat flawed logic, because I'm willing to bet that there are countries out there who are not fundamentally corrupt that still maybe perhaps have problems with internet connectivity, just guessing. But
Puerto Rico exists.
Yeah. So
New Orleans and Houston have had some problems of late.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a flawed premise to be certain, but it didn't take that long to express.
I mean, when the big one hits, didn't we just discover last year that when the big one hits, Seattle's going to go? And I think Seattle is probably Jordan Peterson's idea of heaven, because like everybody there has similar dress sense and skin tone as him.
And he could go eat iguana with Jeff Bezos.
Yeah. Can I do just a supplemental?
Why not?
All right.
I mean, you didn't get to do a funny voice the first time either.
That's true. All right. Please now imagine, dear listener, the biggest bong rip of all fucking time.
Yeah. I kind of quit smoking weed, or I would do that sound effect right now. But, I mean, it was even before I read this book and decided to make myself a better person. But,
You are standing up straight.
I am. In a T-pose.
What would your life look like if it were better? What would life itself look like? What does better even mean? You don't know. And it doesn't matter that you don't know exactly right away, because you will start to slowly see what is better once you have truly decided to want it. Like, thanks, rejected paragraph from Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
I was going to say, and this was something I didn't write down in my notes, but it makes me sad that 20 years ago, the type of person who wanted to read a self-help book got something fundamentally kind-hearted like Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Mechanics, or even say, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Mm-hmm. Whereas now, if you're searching for that, you get this asshole yelling at you about biological imperatives.
That's the thing. It's also, the self-contradictions on biological imperatives, like, keep going deeper. I'd forgot this one, but it was in my notes. He refers to this study that was done where some people are shown a picture of people passing a basketball back and forth, and they're told to count the number of passes. And they do so, and almost everybody who does this fails to notice that at some point a giant gorilla shows up on screen. Like it's a guy in a gorilla costume.
Yeah, and he dances all around. He's being all crazy. Once you know he's there, you can't not see him.
And people, anyway. This study has been adduced in all kinds of popular misunderstandings of science or misrepresentations of science. But in this, he sums it up with, they were working on a specific task, and it has the following quote: "The big ape could safely be ignored." Now, this actually I really like, because it's a really good argument against his kind of vulgar interpretation of evolution, which is that, evolution is good and causes progress, instead of just things change and some things handle it better than others. Because, in evolutionary terms, do you know what we call animals that ignore the sudden appearance of apex predators?
Prey.
Yeah. We also call them unsuccessful. Sometimes we call them food. But yeah, it's this all long-winded way of saying that, as I believe Snoop Dogg once said, a big ape in your path is bad for your health.
That's true.
Sorry, that's the worst joke I've ever made, but I was so happy when I thought of it.
Once again, a long trip to the corner store there.
I'll take it.
No, it was worth it. It was worth it in the end.
Big ape, Anyway, do we have any more games we'd like to play? Even though life is a constant struggle against the forces of femininity chaos. It's like being lost in a cave, a big, scary, wet, dark cave.
That absolutely has no subtext whatsoever.
Yeah,
I think we do.
I dropped my spear.
Oh, no. For some reason, my spear has suddenly become flaccid. I have no idea what this means. Okay, yes, we do. We have a What Would They Do?
Sometimes attentions are hard to define, and others the clear as day. So tell me, what would they do?
All right, so this one, we put ourselves into the shoes of characters in the book we're reading, since this is primarily just written by one man with one very singular point of view. I think this will be a little bit easier.
But be more like me.
Yeah. But what we've decided to do is take some popular aphorisms from Poor Richard's Almanac, the famous Ben Franklin repository of witty rhetoric, and Petersonify them, I believe. And I know for me, at least, I'm going to be going completely freestyle, so I might mess it up. But
I think you're going to do great.
Okay.
You've prepared your whole life for this, and even if you take a step that's wrong. Don't compare yourself against the people who are high-stepping. Step forthrightly and on concrete. Concrete is a material made of ground-up gypsum.
Shut up. Shut up. So I have chosen A Stitch in Time Saves 9. While a weak individual may wait for chaos to descend upon his sartorial choices and allow his wardrobe to deteriorate over time until it scarcely resembles the clothes of a civilized man at all, a smart, well-realized masculine man knows that taking the time to sew a small rip in his fabric, while it may be feminine work, is the fabric itself of civilization. What do you think? Was that...
Yeah, no, that was the only problem. Your punchline was related to your setup, which seems deeply un-Petersonian to me.
Yeah. I was just happy that I got the fabric thing in there twice. Yeah,
that was perfect. The other problem is it would have taken Peterson like 40 more pages to get there.
That's true. He would have first had to describe what fabric is, the history of who invented it, and then, hand wave away any sort of female contribution to the textile industry.
I'm also a little surprised you didn't go with something like the development of needles was one of the most epic defining developments.
I had a friend in high school.
Oh, God.
There's so many of these. We haven't even mentioned it, but there's so many, specifically one friend named Chris, I believe, who he just repeatedly throws under the bus as the example of everything wrong in the world. And it made me realize I would hate to be friends with this guy for many reasons, but yeah.
There's also a really long case study about an unfaithful husband, 90% of which, and that is not an exaggeration, 90% of which by word count is about, like, the failings of the wife.
Yeah, of course. I mean, when a man fucks up, it's always a woman's fault. Duh.
Okay, back to aphorisms.
Yes.
What have you got for me?
How about early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise?
Yeah, I got to do it. I once had a client.
That is, you win already.
I once had a client whose inability to function in day-to-day society was perhaps best exemplified by his inability to find work taking place during normal business hours. Laboring merely as a janitor, wallowing in the detritus and effluvia of the productive elements of society, he found himself not making much money, working nights, and sad about this. I advised him to pull up his jumpsuit
by the bootstraps.
And reminded him that never did working nights advance the aims of society. Night is legendarily and historically when we hide from the dragons in our caves. Dragons are often in caves, but not the caves we inhabit, except that some very self-destructive people do try to inhabit caves inhabited by dragons. Bad idea. Unproductive idea, held mostly by the browner members of societies.
Oh, God. You're so on point.
Anyway, that's all I got.
No, I mean, that was good. I mean, as a client, or I had a client, sealed the deal because, there's like not a single anecdote here that doesn't start out as I had a client, I had a friend, or when I was a teenager. You know what we didn't mention is one of my favorite stories where it talks about how one summer he worked on a railroad line and just gets relentlessly hazed by these guys around him, but doesn't seem to realize they're making fun of him the whole time.
Also, his long, extremely approving story about how one guy, like the annoying guy, was literally pelted with rocks till he quit.
Yeah.
And he's just like, that's just boys being boys.
He's like, he couldn't handle it. He couldn't handle the masculine camaraderie of getting rocks thrown at his head.
Although I got to say, the portrait he drew of that guy, like I've definitely worked with that guy. I have to say, I've also had jobs where I think I probably was that guy. And I'm very sorry for that.
Yeah, I think me too.
But I think in general, a response to somebody being a verbal pain in the ass is you should annoy them verbally, not pelt their helmet with rocks.
Increasingly larger rocks, too. It's mentioned it starts with pebbles. By the end, it's substantially sized rocks that leave bruises.
I also really, really like the moment where he like describes the rock hitting the helmet as making a sound that he's deeply entranced by. I should have realized even then, like, oh yeah, this guy's weeded out as fuck.
I don't think it's that. I think that this is one of those dudes who grew up bullied, but grew up to identify with the bullies as a defense mechanism. And so like he never comes out and says this, but the way he talks about bullying behavior is almost like with a reverence.
Oh, he fetishizes it for
yeah,
sure.
like he feels like what made him the man that he is today was the strength to overcome people behaving completely inappropriately to him.
Which is more or less what he did is he took himself out of those places where he couldn't compete and then went to a place where he can bully other people, which is a lot, so I've just described Reddit.
Yeah, exactly. Or most of the internet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I did want to mention that earlier we alluded to some of the countermeasures that we were using to get through this book, and I did want to mention that like a lot of what I was doing was just putting something on TV so I could half pay attention to it and read this, and when I was finishing the book, I was watching a marathon on AXS TV of Japanese wrestling, and
I for one am shocked.
well, at the moment when I got to this point in the book where he's describing the best way to deal with a willful child is to repeatedly poke him in the chest, which is just some straight up bully shit. I looked up at my TV and two Japanese men were slapping each other. And I was like, you know what? I can't do this right now. And I went to YouTube and watched the live feed of a zoo's panda cam. For the rest of the time I was reading this, it took me that to get through this book without just hating the entire world. It's like I had to take occasional breaks of reading this vitriol to look up at pandas just eating bamboo and being cute and being like, oh, there is beauty in this world after all.
That sounds fucking adorable.
Yeah, I think it's the Atlanta Zoo. They have a live feed, and then they have like a greatest hits feed that's like 10 hours long. That's just edited together footage of pandas doing panda things.
Have you seen the cut together footage of the young panda like demanding attention from somebody who's just like trying to do work in the panda cage? That is the cutest fucking thing there is.
You know what? I bet Jordan Peterson hates pandas though. They're too lazy to even mate on their own.
But he does have a long-winded appreciation for like why we respond well to animals with like big eyes. So pandas have those big black circles around their eyes.
Yep.
That's why we think they're cute, because they look like juveniles to us.
Yeah.
Which is
And
something I assume that Jordan Peterson, my dad, and I all read the same article in Discover magazine.
Or I was going to say
1988.
the same book on how to draw comics, because that I definitely learned that at age 12 or 13 when I was checking out books about how to draw anime from the library. So.
Speaking of countermeasures, I took a break to work out, as I do. And
whoa! Look at this dominant male of the species over here.
Extremely successful.
Wait, was this book the insult that made a man out of Clsn?
Yeah. No, actually, watching Rocky Horror Picture Show way too many times as a literal preteen is what made a man out of me.
Yeah, there's some aspirational bodies in that.
Yeah. And I'm not just talking about Meatloaf.
Well, I was.
But so I paused it, and like as I just work out at home, and I often put a movie on in the background. So I flicked on a streaming service that shall go unnamed, and they have recently added Beer Fest, which I vaguely remembered having seen. So I threw that on, and it's not very funny.
No,
but it's not any dumber than this.
Yeah, and it almost exists solely to be dumb.
Yeah,
and that's. Yeah.
So that's kind of a problem.
Whereas this exists solely to convince you that it's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anywho, do we want to do a biggest surprise?
Yeah, we might as well.
All
biggest
right.
surprise.
What the hell?
Never run empty, we're vigorous guys. The show runs longer and vigorous size. Got them hungry minds and the rigorous eyes. Let us tell you about this fucking book's biggest surprise. Boom!
All right, so, Clsn.
I gotta tell you, man, the biggest surprise is, and I noticed this very, very early, with a kind of dawning horror. This has an introduction written by one of Jordan Peterson's like most obsequious friends that basically consists of, you know, the guy dancing around playing like little finger chimes like, Jordan is so great. He's very
brave, Sir Robin.
smart. Yeah, exactly. Like he talks a lot at parties, but no, everybody really likes it.
Sorry. The identity politics, social justice, leftist front finds him distasteful. That's actually a good thing, Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. He's very brave. He says what no one will. Things like more money is generally good.
The intellectual dark web, ladies and gentlemen.
Don't rock the boat. Yeah. But it's just the introduction, although it's not an introduction, it's an overture, which is the sign that you're really reading a book up its own ass.
As by someone who's listened to too much Rush. But
Is such a thing possible? And it just kept fucking going. Like, my first note in my notes is literally, how long is this fucking introduction?
it gets to almost 10% of the book.
And that's a long book. So that's a long overture. So the biggest surprise to me was that we had somehow chosen one of our most frequently avoided categories of read. The thing that's longer than we like it to be.
And combined it with the thing that we know is going to piss us off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were also like, I mean, up until, so we're recording this very, very late for us. And we were literally up until yesterday afternoon openly discussing we could just stop and do something else instead.
Yeah. I mean, that's been on my mind since we started reading this. Like, I feel poisoned by this.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to take me a couple weeks to recover and maybe start to be able to look at the world generously again. Remember that there are many people out there who don't share these views in it. I guess for me, the biggest surprise, honestly, is it does get overtly political at times in a very upsetting way. But I think what surprised me the most is how much of it isn't and how much of it is just really banal advice. Like you pointed out earlier, like wash your hands after you wipe your ass type shit. And like
It's the foundation of society.
Yeah.
Not shitting where you eat.
But I mean, the fact that this has turned into such an influential text amongst people who really define themselves by being politically contrarian, I would say. I was surprised at how little actual political content there is. That's not to say that what is here isn't incredibly distasteful, but so much of this just literally feels like stuff that your grandfather would like tell you, like always wear clean underwear and stuff like that. And that kind of surprised the hell out of me. I don't know. I mean, it's fucking chicken soup for the soul, but like for really detestable people. And I think that surprised me because I was literally expecting this entire thing to be full-throated, fucking anti-social justice, contrarian bullshit. And while there is a lot of that, there's also a lot of quotes from the Bible.
Yeah.
And just weird things about your posture and what time you should go to bed at night and stuff like that. So it kind of surprised me how much of this just falls into very prescriptivist self-help in a very obvious way.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
Man, I just rambled about the same thing for long enough that I think I should go write a book like this now.
I mean, as we've both hinted at, we've just spent a lot of time with Jordan Peterson. Some of it might have sunk in.
Dear Lord, I hope not.
Same. So maybe we should take a break, kind of, I don't know, do something anti-Jordan Peterson-like, I don't know, watch a Simpsons episode at normal speed.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Or we could express our feelings in a healthy way.
Yeah, not insist that our interpretation of something is actually right. Or, I don't know, maybe actually talk a good game about listening and then actually follow up on it.
Yeah, let's go do all of those things and then we'll be back to talk about something that isn't this. All right, welcome back. Now that we're done talking about life advice from the kind of dude who shushes other people's children in restaurants. we're going to recommend things that are moderately less toxic for your enjoyment because, we say it a lot. Don't read this book.
Don't read this book.
Absolutely not. I guess I'll go first. I feel like it's a good antidote to chaos, if you will, in that we just read a whole book that has a lot of chapters about how the patriarchy doesn't exist and women have it easy and things like that. And I just wanted to recommend a very old British mystery series that I enjoy a great deal. Helen Mirren stars in it. It is called Prime Suspect. It's about a female detective making her way up the ranks of the British police force by solving murders and dealing with a constant stream of horrible misogyny, generally perpetrated by a very young Cillian Murphy, which is pretty entertaining to see.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, no, it's a really cool mystery show, but it also, features a very, very, I hate to say strong female protagonist, but a woman who's dealing with a lot of bullshit and still manages to get shit done and also make a lot of these jerks look stupid in the process. So, I would recommend it. It feels very vindicating after making my way through this book, for sure.
Okay, I'm going to follow that up with one thing to read and one thing not to read. The thing to read, and I'll put a link to this in the show notes, is a 1970 review by Ellen Willis. It's a review of the movies Easy Rider and Alice's Restaurant. And it is very interesting and sparks a letter to the editor debate that is only to be read if you're in the mood for first, Jordan Peterson-esque bullshit about women be different than men, and then second, a withering takedown of same. So anyway, I'll link to that. It was really interesting, and even if you don't read the letters to the editor, the review itself is just a great read and really interesting. And the second thing I'm going to recommend keeps on the theme. It's a movie that just came out. It's called The Rider. I recommend that you see it. The last time I checked it, it made something like $260,000, so you will be one of the few and the proud who see it. Know as little as possible about it before going in, and that is all I will say about it.
Okay, cool. So moving on, I think it's time for some correspondence, a.k.a. letters.
A, letters B, letters C, letters D, letters E, letters M, letters G, letters, got a lot of letters.
All right, so you send us stuff. Sometimes we read it. Sometimes it's actually stuff we get in the real mail instead of the email.
This is an extra special edition of letters because we have 3 and they're all physical artifacts.
That's good. I need something happy in my life right now.
The first one, this is intriguing. This, I think, is the first time this has ever happened. Mm-hmm. It is from a longtime listener named Ross, fake last name. Mm-hmm. And it is a book, What He Done Wrote.
Whoa.
It is also a book that...
Look at Mr. Smarty Pants over here.
Right. It is also a book we're unlikely to do on the show for 2 reasons. One, if somebody smart enough to listen to this show is smart enough to finish a book and get it published, it's probably not a bad book. And number 2, it is about JavaScript.
Yeah, well, I'm going to read it and enjoy it then for sure. Because if there's 2 things I like, it's cracking on bad books and writing JavaScript.
Exactly. So very, very cool. And
like I said, this is pretty modern too. This has like a section about Webpack and...
Oh, this just came out.
Awesome. Yeah, no, this looks really good. Cool. Thank you, Ross.
Yeah, so that is, again, awesome and a first time. Who says we're not still breaking ground?
Yeah. Maybe I'll do a little Patreon bonus where I relate what I've learned.
Okay. And this is from Ava, fake last name, and it comes from a far-off land called Germany?
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a place that's far from here.
Indeed. Hi, guys. I discovered your podcast because my podcasting app suggested Hollywood Wives as similar to the one I was currently listening to. An episode on Canadian crimes from a true crime podcast.
Weird. Okay.
I don't quite understand the connection, but I binged on your podcasts pretty quickly afterwards, including the episodes about sports I never really understood the rules of. Admittedly, as a proper German, I really only understand the rules of soccer. I still don't understand baseball, and wrestling confuses me a lot. But I enjoy listening to you talking about it. And because I can't feel And because I feel I can't write to a book podcast without recommending something, here are two. A book for the podcast, Rather Weird by Andrew Caldecott. I started reading it because it had a glowing review by Hilary Mantel on the cover and was advertised as For Fans of the Rivers of London series. It was a book about a character with a quirky name who moves into a quirky village where everybody also has a quirky name or no name at all. Like, I can actually feel my neck getting tenser.
Yeah. This sounds like whimsy, all right.
Some people pole vault. Now that's a pull quote on the cover.
Yeah.
Like if I just was walking by a book and it said some people pole vault, I'd be like, you have my attention.
Well, the first thing I would do is check to make sure it wasn't written by Morrissey, and then I'd get interested.
God. Yeah. The second is something I actually enjoyed, and Jay, as fellow old lady mystery lover, might as well. Jefferson Fargion wrote at the same time as Agatha Christie and was popular as well, but didn't have her lasting popularity. Some of his books are re-released now, and Mystery in White is an extremely enjoyable read about people in a train that get stuck in the snow, and then strange things start happening.
Well, this sounds right up my alley.
His Seven Dead is also fun, but completely insane.
Okay, I'm checking it out for sure. I like fun, I like insane, I like trains, I like Agatha Christie, so...
I like paragraphs that start with the following sentence. Oh yes, the crab.
Yes.
It doesn't have a name yet, unless you count the deadliest crab, which is the name of the knitting pattern. I think you should name it. Yours, Ava. And it's worth noting that this is handwritten on some beautiful aquarium or aquatic-themed stationery with, you guessed it, a lobster crawling along the bottom.
Yeah, I bet that lobster is about to pick up all sorts of high-status females. Ah, yes, another plush crab, and this, whoa.
This one's really cool.
It is, and is he holding a pen or a paintbrush?
He's holding a leg, my man.
Oh, whoa, that is a severed human leg. Oh my goodness.
Including, like, it's a leg that's bloody at one end with, like, a blue pant, a pink sock, and a black shoe.
I also like that
this is
the
fucking amazing.
The crab's underbelly is also white and soft.
Yeah.
This is great.
This is an amazing, amazing artifact.
Well,
its face is so friendly, too.
Yeah, well, you know.
Except for the leg that it's clipped off.
Crabs will fool you. Yeah, we got to find a place for this in the studio as well. We'll take a picture once we do.
And a name. He needs, or she, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess at this point, who knows? I don't know how to sex a crab or a chicken, so.
Okay, so, but what we should name her right now.
Any ideas?
Leggy?
Pinchy?
Two on the nose. Or who wants to get pinched on the nose by a crab?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Okay, you know what?
Optimus.
I'm going to throw this open. We're calling him Optimus for right now.
Yeah, why don't you write in and suggest names?
Exactly.
We'll post a picture.
We'll run a little contest. Best name will win. I don't know. I'll send you a prize pack.
Yeah. Sounds good. It'll be in our Facebook group.
Yeah.
The Party Pit.
Okay. We have one more, and this is from Sarah, fake last name, who we have read from in the past, and who sent us this incredible care package that is chock full of things, starting with cinnamon apple crisps, moon cheese.
What? Wait. No, you can't just run over. What is moon cheese? Is that like astronaut ice cream, but cheese?
I think so.
So it's like freeze-dried cheese? I'm going to try some right now. You keep reading because no one wants to listen to me chew.
Eating on air, that's great radio.
Yeah.
We've got a savory nut mix, which is actually a good description of the I don't even own a television fun time party pit. Sometimes it does get a little salty, but it's always crunchy and a good time.
Okay, it is freeze-dried cheese. It's fucking delicious. And I'm a big fan.
There's some garlic, herb, pumpkin seeds, some safely Ziploc wrapped chocolates, and it's labeled safety first, just in case they melt. Now that's thoughtful care packaging, Sarah. Good fucking job.
Uh-oh, the cat is getting very interested in the savory nut mix. Cat, get away.
Like I said, a good description of the party pit. We've got a dark chocolate sea salt caramel pecan cluster. That's going home with me.
I feel like I'm at summer camp. I know. This is amazing. Oh, in a mystery manila envelope.
An amazing
Yes.
little embossed print. It's got like what looks like an elf, a snail, a rat, a beetle,
squirrel.
and a squirrel. The squirrel is nibbling on a big banner that the squirrel and the elf are holding, and the emblazoned upon the banner is a pretty good mantra.
Let's fuck shit up.
Indeed. Let's us fuck some shit up.
Oh man,
Sorry, I'm still going through.
This is amazing.
This box has got.
Trust me, you don't have to bribe us to get letters on the air. It does help. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm gonna have some more moon cheese.
Yeah, we got some stickers. We've got like.
Who wants to hear some chewing sounds on the air? This is me rustling in the bag and
The piece of letterpress art is, according to the letter, it comes from the Anarchist Coffee Shop, which I'm going to guess is the red and the black, because I believe Sarah is from my former stomping grounds of Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, and Portland seems like one of the few places where there would be an explicitly anarchist coffee shop not named Oakland.
There's actually Left Bank Books in Seattle is one of the best bookstores I've ever been to. It's a lot of fun. And last but not least, chewing sounds. Oh, I didn't think he was actually going to do it, guys. I'm so sorry. We have here a book, and not just any book. It's a Hardy Boys book.
It's a hardback.
It's a hardback.
Which I didn't even know existed.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gosh, it's Hardy Boys at the Jungle Pyramid, too. So this will be some real good cultural tourism, Hardy Boys.
And the cover is two, they're supposed to be dynamically creeping up a staircase, but they just sort of look broken and vaguely cubist.
Or maybe kind of like the skanking man from the Operation Ivy logo.
Yeah. They're also wearing like crisp, tucked button front shirts into their khakis.
I mean, from the brief glimpse I got, it kind of looks like two Jehovah's Witnesses sneaking their way up a staircase to ring the doorbell and annoy me.
I think sorry, I'm just looking for the note here. I found this Hardy Boys book in the most wonderfully trashy gift shop in Rockaway Beach, Oregon, literally titled The Trash and Treasure.
Well, you know what they say about Rockaway Beach.
Rockaway
I was
Beach.
just going to say it's not hard and not far to reach. But,
Okay, I only remembered the other part.
Same idea.
And Sarah describes it perfectly. The artwork, awesome and horrible at the same time. So thank you so much. There's so much stuff in here. It would take us another hour to get through it all. But thank you so very much.
Yeah, I'm all set for snacks. I don't even need to eat the bags of beef jerky I stole from work this week. Sorry, coworkers, if you're listening. All right.
And these are all local snacks, which is amazing. Thank you so much. If you want to get a hold of us, you can always do so at idon'tevenownaTelevision@gmail.com. We're also decreasingly on Twitter, but you can still find us there at IDEOTV pod. We will probably be taking a bit of a Twitter break because we expect the eye of Sauron to descend upon us in the form of swarms of dipshit Jordan Peterson stands. So it might be a little bit of a break there. There's also the I Don't Even Own a Television Fun Time Party Pit, which you can find on Facebook pretty easily. Ever growing, ever concerned with crabs. Great place to look at and post pictures of truly insane end caps from bookstores.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And beyond that, like all of our episodes, this is brought to you by our wonderful subscribers on Patreon, where you can find us at patreon.com/IDEOTVpod. If you enjoy the show, please consider donating something. We post a lot of free bonus content, or bonus content for everyone. If you donate at the $5 level or above, you get an extra episode every month. It's a good way to be.
Wait, what?
It's true.
An additional episode?
Yeah,
not just an episode every 2 weeks, but an extra episode every month?
Yeah, and sometimes it's even about cool stuff like Banicula. So
that's true. So the last one was about Banicula. I have a sneaking suspicion that the next one may concern
the boys of Hardy.
I'm just saying the boys may be back in
I
town.
think that might be the case because that sounds fun.
When we talk about the Hardy Boys, I'm not talking about...
Grown men in Jenkos and mesh shirts.
Fuck. Yo, okay, that's a good place to go. I was desperately trying to rack my brain for the name of 2 male Thomas Hardy characters. I should have prepped that better.
Wonderful.
Listener, please imagine a really erudite, witty joke about Thomas Hardy and write in and congratulate me for having landed that one.
Yeah, he was Bane, right? Anyway, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back in a couple weeks. We're going to talk about something that hopefully both of us will be far less angry about and kind of get back in the groove of, joking around a little more. But we felt like this needed to be done, and we did it, and I'm proud of us.
Me too.
And I'm proud of you, listener, for making it all the way through. And until next time, don't read this shit.
12 rules? More like 12 drools.
Ooh, damn.
Anyway, ride the crab.